Even when we get into arguments about players, it's like, "Oh, I love this player." Well, whatever. I mean, I'll take him or leave him. I'll trade him away or I'll buy him. JJ McCarthy. It's not like JJ McCarthy. It's like, that's no. You're like, oh, I picked him in the fourth.
I get that way sometimes. Maybe it's a Canadian thing.
Everybody has this in them. That's right, and some way more so than you, Trav. Obviously,
I just love Rome Odunze, man. I just love Rome Odunze. That's all.
right. The Rome Odunze is your Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He can do no wrong.
Correct. Yep.
0 catches, no yards, no touchdowns.
Yeah.
He was open, man. He was fucking open.
Make Rome great again.
There it is.
Yeah.
This is great because I can piggyback a Roman Wilson take on that.
Yes. The Roman Wars.
Make Roman mediocre again. Sights and sounds and edges found. You will now get down with the Underground, the show that goes to the depths of the Dynasty landscape. Dynasty Underground is back in the crib, posted up on the Undroppables YouTube channel. Please make sure you subscribe there. Check us out on your favorite audio platforms. And with me, as is customary, we have the wise man, Mr. Jax Falcone, fresh off a nice sunny day down in California. How you doing today, my man?
I'm doing good. I had a day off, played in the backyard with the kids. Doesn't get any better than that. Well, it does get better than that, but we say things like that just to make them feel good.
Absolutely, we do. Absolutely. And a good lesson for our resident new parent here. One Joquavius Kuvatakis, who is ultra casual today, as he did not want to go into the bedroom to change his outfit for work, so he decided to roll in casual. Sorry for breaking the fourth wall there, Joe, but I thought that was a very relatable dad point there. So I wanted to bring that up, though. How are you doing? Your second, maybe third week into fatherhood, Joe?
We are on day 15, so into the third week
3.
now. 3 hours of sleep last night, and yes, you're correct. I came home from my walk with my dog this morning and found my wife and my baby sleeping and decided to let them continue sleeping. So Today was my first day back in the real world, and I showed up like I was walking my dog.
Made the right call, brother. You made the right call. Absolutely. And yeah, go follow us on social media. You can find our personal social medias in the description, as well as at the Undroppables everywhere else. You can find us. And we've been having some fun with this team series, guys. And we got a couple of more episodes left. Tonight, we are talking about a group of teams who have a lot of questions, but some upside, some quarterbacks who need to emerge, and some situations who are murky. I was thinking as I was going through some notes here, guys, that from a range of outcomes perspective, the teams that we're talking about tonight are very, very fun. Jax, you mentioned pre-show that there's a lot of hate for some of these teams. I mentioned that I prefer not to use the H word personally, and I think it's going to be a good conversation, boys. Any big thoughts before we roll in here?
Yeah, obviously, not to bury the lead, but I think the quarterbacks in this group are all, undervalued or hated in a lot of scenarios. There's some value here, and I can't wait to unearth the value.
Absolutely. And those teams that we're going to cover are the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Arizona Cardinals, the Seattle Seahawks, Miami Dolphins, Indianapolis Colts. And we're going to kick it off with Joe Quavius's Raiders. They are in Las Vegas now. I almost called them the Oakland Raiders there for a second, but I
as you Oakland. Should.
Yeah, I know. Like, I wish it was that. It feels weird to call them the Vegas Raiders. Like, a starter jacket that says Las Vegas on it seems kind of weird. But we're going to go there nonetheless, guys. And I think this offense looks sneaky good. We've been talking about them a little bit throughout the offseason. Some pretty solid additions alongside some core pieces that they already had in place. Going to start, obviously, with the quarterback that they brought in. There's a bunch of additions, which are pretty fun here. So I didn't really know which guy to start with, but I think everything kind of starts with the quarterback position, guys. And I think this is kind of a perfect spot for Geno to continue to be awesome in fantasy football. What do you guys think about his prospects as like that super flex quarterback 2, which is probably what he is on your roster? What do you think about the outlook for him coming from Seattle to I almost said Oakland again. Vegas's passing game and what he can do there with old Peach Cobbler at the helm as head coach. Joe, let's start with you since it's your team.
I just want to say, just for further notice, just call them the Oakland Raiders.
Okay.
Call them the San Diego Chargers.
Okay.
Everything else is just, it's still wrong.
Don't call them the Washington Redskins. Don't.
Why not?
Do not do that.
Yeah. So, listen, Geno is by far, I mean, I had Gardner Minshew and Alexander Ocasio-Cortez. I mean, Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell as my quarterback last year.
She's hot. Just saying.
And listen, she can't play quarterback.
No.
She's not a starter, at least. She's a good backup. She's a good backup. Minshew
Backup
is a good
for
backup. We're off to a great start.
Yeah.
So anyways, and before that, I had just, what 10 years, 11 years? I can't even remember how many years of Derek freaking Carr, who, God bless him, seems like a real nice guy. I can't wait to see how his career takes off on NFL Network following in Big Bro's footsteps. But Geno Smith is the best quarterback we've had in a long time. And if truth is being told, he's probably like a middle of the pack quarterback. He's going to, last year behind a real bad offensive line, he had a 70% completion percentage. He threw for 4,300 yards, 21 touchdowns, also 15 interceptions. So it's not like it's a great TD to interception ratio, but put him behind a better offensive line. Give him a little bit more time. I'm not going to say his receiving options are better than he had. There's no DK, but there is a Brock Bowers, right? I would argue that at this stage in their careers, Jacoby Myers is way better than what Tyler Lockett was last year. So I wouldn't say it's a significantly worse. There's questions about the downfield threat and how this offense is going to work, but it's a huge improvement. It's definitely a huge improvement over last year. So I think we can, and just with the pace of play that Chip Kelly has played at in the NFL, I think we're going to see more up tempo and a lot more fantasy points from this offense. And to your point, Trav, I think it does start a quarterback. I don't think Geno's like going to be a league winner for you in any sort of single quarterback league, but in any Superflex league, I'm pretty damn comfortable with him as my QB2. And I think that he's probably below market relative to where he's going to perform this year. I think as a dynasty asset, his value is going to probably stay level, even if he has a really good year. I think his value is going to stay level. He's just the dude you hold on to your roster until he's not throwing the ball anymore.
Yeah, I think when you look at Geno, I would put him as a back-end quarterback too in redraft, I mean, with very little ceiling, I think, he doesn't have the rushing upside to get there. He doesn't necessarily have the pass weapons to, expect, a 40 touchdown season through the air. I just think he's going to be fine. I think if you're playing in one of those leagues that has, penalties for sacks and picks and negative plays, I think he's going to avoid those. So I think he's going to be pretty steady as she goes. They're going to run the football effectively. They're going to be good, not great. In terms of the pass game weapons, when you look at it, you talked about the downfield threat. I'm on our lads when I look at depth charts, and they're actually pretty good at keeping it, number one, up to date, and number two, accurate. They currently have Dante Thornton Jr. as a starter alongside Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker, and I believe it. So they have him starting ahead of Jack Besh, which to me, I think is good for the team too, because Dante Thornton Jr. and Trey Tucker are the type of players that are going to do a lot of wind sprints. They're going to run a lot of routes and get a few targets here and there. They're going to make some big plays. They're going to be the downfield threat. It's basically like Dante Thornton Jr. is like the DK Metcalf who doesn't expect to get the football. That's the difference, right? It's like DK was like, I'm open. This guy's like, I hope I get it one day, So it's going to be, he's going to open things up for both Bowers and Jacoby. And I really think it's a two-man show there with Jacoby and Bowers. I think both of them should be 25% plus target share on the season. And that's huge. I don't think they're going to have a high passing volume. I think they're going to be fairly efficient, considering the fact that Genty should be pretty special on the ground. He's going to get some attention. If only Thornton and Tucker can stretch the field, this team can take that next step. I think if they can put pressure vertically, then all of a sudden it opens things up for Bowers and Myers in the middle, and then Genty out of the backfield. If they play a little closer to the line of scrimmage and don't have that deep threat, which I do think those two guys, even though they're not great receivers, I think they bring that, then they're in trouble, obviously, if they don't have that, right?
Well, you just hit and I'm sorry, Trav, I'm taking over hosting for a second here because this is my team. You just hit on a really interesting point, Jax, because Trey Tucker last season ran the 4th most routes in the NFL.
He ran the
what did he do with
most routes in the league in 2 wide sets, Trey Tucker.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yes. Yeah, and the 4th most routes total in the NFL. So there is a huge opportunity there for Thornton. If he beats out Tucker, they didn't add any wide receivers aside from him and Besh, who is, I think, the succession plan to Jakobi Meyers, who's in a contract year, right? They occupy the same area of the field. I don't think you can really play both of them and Bowers. I think Besh is going to be sort of the succession plan to Myers because they don't want to pay Myers long term. That's my read on the situation. So Thornton can take, even if they just split them, right, and they each run 300 routes, that's still a good number of routes. But I think that they already know that Tucker, with that number of routes, isn't going to draw a lot of targets, or maybe they just didn't have quarterbacks that had the guts to, throw it to him. But I think Tucker is what he is, a very solid depth piece. And I think Thornton has that sort of athleticism that poses a bigger threat. So there's a huge opportunity for him. But we jumped ahead to the wide receivers before we got to the highlights of this team.
I don't want to get there just yet. I got a couple of things to say about these pass catchers.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, I think what I kind of see is, yes, those guys will be used opportunistically. And I think they can be used opportunistically as opposed to frequently because of what Pete Carroll's going to try to do to this run volume, right? I think he's going to want to run the rock a shitload. Looking at his Seahawks team, 6 out of his last 12 years were top 5 rush attempt seasons in the NFL. So he's going to want to do that if he can help it. And so I think that might make it so that their wide receiver 2 doesn't run that many routes like Trey Tucker did last year, right, Joe? So I don't think that opportunity will be there to the level of Trey Tucker's route opportunity.
Maybe
last
not
year.
As many attempts if they're winning more.
But there will be like a couple tiers below that of available routes that are there for potentially Dante Thornton or even a split. I'm kind of treating those guys as like best ball stacking options mostly. And I kind of think that we're going to see a little bit more downfield work from Jakobi Meyers this year, because we kind of said it going into like last year that Jakobi Meyers and Brock Bowers kind of occupy similar areas of the field, right? And so if we look last year, he only had 13 deep targets on, I think, 128 total targets did Jakobi Meyers. So not that he is like an amazing downfield receiver, but I think intermediate to downfield, he can still be good and get some more work where that's concerned. Because I think, like you said, Jax, this is going to be a fucking funnel to those two guys. I think that plays well for Geno to be a serviceable quarterback too, like we talked about. And I think that plays pretty well for Jakobi Meyers to maybe see some upside that we haven't seen from him. Because yes, he got those 128 targets last year, but he's going to see a role like he still has never seen yet. Like last year, they had Devontae Adams in there and stuff, and it was a bit of a dysfunctional mess. Now he's going to get some stability, and he's going to get, Geno Smith as an awesome quarterback for him, and, a funnel of targets. So I think it's going to be nice for Jakobi Meyers. I'm not really adding those guys too much. Dante Thornton's a guy I'd add in Dynasty for sure. And we talked about that in draft season, late round flyer as that big guy who can play X. Like we also talk about that too. There's not a ton of those guys who can play that true X all the time. And so a lot of these guys that are nabbed in the back of the draft get some serious usage. Ipso facto, our lad's depth chart, baby.
Yeah. By the way, I would look at Thornton. You can take it from here after this, but I would just look at Thornton as a stash and flip. Like, I don't think he ever poses a real high target share guy. It's possible he turns out. But I would think that once he makes a couple splash plays, he's the type of player you want to add now for nothing off waivers, or you might have him already in the 4th or 5th round of your rookie draft. But point of the matter is, I think at some point I would be happy to sell him for a second once he makes a couple big plays. But go ahead, Joe.
Mm-hmm. Joe, are you going to Genty, or are we going to polish off Bowers here?
Well, actually, real quick, I realized I tried to make the transition before we talked about Jacoby Myers, who's probably the most underrated wide receiver in
In
the
the NFL.
I
NFL.
drafted him in Scott
I
Fishbowl,
mean,
boys.
As did I.
me too. Wow, that's pretty funny. We all did it.
Obviously. It's like so easy.
All right. So last 4 years in reverse order, he finishes the wide receiver 20, the wide receiver 24, the wide receiver 29, and the wide receiver 35. So, 35 and 29, that was with the different team, with the Patriots. 2 years with the Raiders, and this was with Devontae Adams on the team for 1.5 of those seasons, or 1.25 of those seasons, and Brock Bowers
The other time
on that team.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he has finished no worse than a wide receiver 2 in points per game since he's been a Raider.
Yeah.
Right. He is now the wide receiver 1 on the team. Granted, Bowers is the primary target earner, but there's no more Devontae Adams. So, and you can have this guy in redraft for wide receiver 4 prices, in Dynasty for arguably cheaper than that.
Yes.
So he's 28, right? So how long is the runway? He's on a contract year, like I said, and I'm not sure that the Raiders are going to resign him. We'll see what happens. But he's like such a huge arbitrage play and such a great bet to earn tons of volume. He was getting 8 targets per game last year. And that was with Devontae for a quarter of the season before he gave up on the team and got traded to the Jets. So he's still the number 1 wide receiver on the team. He's never finished as less than a wide receiver 3 in the last 4 years, never less than a wide receiver 2 since he's been on the Raiders. And the path is cleared for him more this year than any on a team that's got better quarterback play, probably faster pace of play. So
I've got another bit of advice on how to handle Jacoby Myers. Like, obviously, people tell you to buy low, go buy Jacoby Myers. Sure. But let's say you have Jacoby Myers on your team. This is a Scott Connor hack or trick or strategy, that I've adopted and looked at in a number of different spots and rosters that I have. And that is, let's say you have Jacoby Myers and he is a non-starter on your team because it's possible that you have better players, but he is hard to sell because nobody wants to pay up for Jacoby Myers. He's the perfect guy that you sell someone who's a starter, elevate Jacoby Myers into your starting roster, and whatever you had to sell, whatever, that better asset that you were able to sell for, a running back or future draft capital, is great because you were able to replace the production, because Jacoby Myers is, underappreciated production in the NFL, period. And he's lined up for such a huge year. And I'm not saying he's going to be a wide receiver 1. He does have top 15 wide receiver upside for sure. I don't think he's going to get there, but it's there. And a surefire, wide receiver 2-3 at the very least is what he's going to be.
Yeah, nobody values him that way. It's funny you mentioned that. I've been looking at him in my home league, trying to figure out a trade where I get him as a throw-in. The dude who owns him is in a rebuild. He's got Saquon Barkley. He should clearly sell Saquon. I don't know if I want to buy Saquon, but I'm trying to figure out, concoct trades where Jacoby Myers is the throw-in, right? Yeah. So it's like I'm building trades around the throw-in, trying to make it look like throw-in, and I doubt he's listening. So we're probably good here.
Yeah.
Now I got to figure it out in the next 48 hours.
Yes.
Yeah, and to your point, he's going as a wide receiver 5, according to Dynasty Data Lab, as the wide receiver 49 in Dynasty startups right now. Yeah, behind Jack Besh.
Oh,
that's crazy.
Jesus.
Behind Keon Coleman.
I mean, come on. What are we doing?
Unbelievable, folks. So I want to touch on Brock Bowers before we move to Gen T, Joe, because I don't think we gave it its just due. I think it merits the question to ask whether we think he's going to regress this year. And I think for me, the short answer is yes. I don't think it's going to be outside of the top 3 finishers or to like a hugely significant level. But I wonder what you guys think, because he had an astronomical season last year, and it's really hard to project him to increase any of that. So what do you think? What's your pulse, Joe, as the Raiders fan?
We just talked about how they didn't really add any real target competition, right? Actually, if anything, they kind of lost some with Devontae Adams gone. He missed parts of games last year. So I mean, it's like Dante Thornton, who's there to stretch the field. Trey Tucker's there to stretch the field. Myers there to occupy the intermediate area. Who else is going to take target share away? I know he got 153 targets, and that's insane
Fourth
for a
all
tight
time
end,
for a
and
tight end. Fourth all
phenomenal,
time.
phenomenal, and 112 receptions. I think he's got 120 receptions in him. I don't think it goes down. Not to mention the value of his targets is probably going to go up with Geno Smith coming into the fold, right? So he got better quarterback play. This is the same thing we talked about with Justin Jefferson last week, where it's like, obviously Jefferson's had a longer career to this point, but it's like, this is the best quarterback play of his career. He had Alexander Ocasio-Cortez and and Gardner Minshew throwing on the ball last year.
Yeah.
like
Two
now
beautiful
he's got
people.
now he's got Geno. Yeah, two beautiful people. Can you imagine what their children would look like?
Oh, just absolutely stunning.
Totally.
I would say though the dynasty advice on Bowers is basically he's a set it and forget it tight end starter for as long as you have him on your roster. There's not, in dynasty it's almost like doesn't matter. I mean, maybe there's some conversation to have, but he's not a fade enough to start to think about, oh, should I be moving off? There's only the Godfather offer of craziness where you have to think and go, 3 first-round picks, Sam Laporte or whatever, you're like, I guess I kind of have to do that or whatever. But other than the stupid offer that you might receive here or there, there's nothing to really think about. You're just basically putting him in your lineup.
Yeah, it was more of a startup question, right? As opposed to like a trader, what should I do with him necessarily? And
his value is so high, though.
I took a look, boys, to see if there was any holes, and you really can't. Like, you can say, okay, the rushing volume might bring the target volume down for Brock Bowers, but he has room to lose some targets, if we're being completely honest, and still be the tight end one, right? And if we look at what he did from the touchdown perspective, he only had 5 last year. There could be some upward regression on that, but I do see, like, it's interesting to note that they were a top 5 pass rate team inside the 10 and 20 last year. I think with Ashton Genty, who we'll talk about next, that probably comes down a little bit. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting, but like those holes you can't even really poke, because if he stays at 5 touchdowns and still gets 130 targets, he's probably still going to be the tight end one, right? Plus upside he gets on that, plus the better quality of targets that you said, Joe. Yeah, so no holes that can be necessarily poked. I've been seeing some maybe Trey McBride over Brock Bowers in startups takes as well, and I'm not really there yet. And so we're going to save that thought because we are talking Cardinals in this one as well. Yeah, just interesting conversation I had. Maybe the dynasty drafters might be thinking.
I want to put this in one sentence. We have the best tight end prospect of all time, who just put up the best rookie year for a tight end of all time on a bad offense with bad quarterback play. What do you think is going to happen when things get better around him? Let's not overthink this, guys. It doesn't have to be hard. He's the best. He in my opinion is a first round pick in just about any format because of the positional advantage that he gives you. Even a non-tight end premium league, I think there's a case to be made there. Certainly a second round pick. Like, he's going in the back half of the second round in underdog right now, and I'm like, I'll take that every time.
Yeah.
Like, I know there are other
that
tight
might just
end
because
values.
it's half point. Maybe just because it's half point, but even then,
it doesn't matter to me. It's just like he's the number one option on his team and has checked every box every step of the way for as long as as long as he's been in our lives.
So
take the free money.
He's never let us down.
Pretty much similar vibe for Ashton Genty, boys. I don't really have notes for Ashton Genty because he's pretty much going to be dope. He's pretty much going to get the volume, and I'm not even going to ask if there's holes to poke in him.
Well, all right. I do, I feel like this entire offseason, whenever we've talked about Ashton Genty, we've just yada, like, obviously he's the running back one in this class and no questions asked. Let's get to more interesting stuff. I think I said that exact thing on like maybe 4 or 5 episodes when we were in the rookie talk stuff, but it probably is worth discussing just a little bit. So just for the listeners who aren't watching film and aren't just complete virgin nerds like we are that are looking at stats, I just want to tell you the realm of prospect he's in. He's in the Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs realm from a college prospect standpoint. The biggest hole you can poke is that, his college competition wasn't the same as those guys.
That's it.
But But that's it, right? And if you watch him play, I mean, anybody with a set of eyes that sees the dude play is just like, yeah, no, he's a superstar, right? But so last year he had 151 avoided tackles. Number 2 in the class was Cam Skattebo.
Yes, he was
at 102. And I love me some Cam Skattebo, but he's nowhere near. I mean, Gente's 50% better at that, right? Yards after contact. This is the argument that ends all arguments. This is why this guy's in like the Barry Sanders sort of like tier of prospect, right? He had 1,970 yards after contact. To put that into perspective, in the FBS, his yards after contact was greater than any other player's total yardage. It's not dominance.
It's like Derrick Henry. It's like NFL
It's
Derrick
ridiculous.
Henry.
It's more ridiculous. It's more ridiculous than that.
Yeah.
It's more ridiculous than that. And the other hole people might poke is, he only had 23 receptions in 2024. In 2023, he had 43 receptions. And let me give you a little more if you want to get a little more advanced analytics, right? In 2023, it was 1.6 yards per route run, which is a very good number for a running back, right? In 2024, on those 23 receptions, he had 3.2 yards per route run.
Exactly.
So
it's absurd for a running back.
Yep. Everything, all of it is absurd. You can talk about the lower level of competition, but 1,900 yards after contact, 2,600 rushing yards.
Yeah.
This is why we yada yada'd it, because like just GTFO. Like on to the next prospect. This one is a Bijan. This one is a Saquon. You freaking get him and you hold on forever, or you get a king's ransom for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because all the stuff like his missed tackles forced per rush was over 40% last year. Like you say, Skattebo was second at 35%. Like that was head and shoulders above the rest of the class and other players. So yeah, it's unbelievable. You mentioned you stole some of my thunder because the yards per route run, like people will poke holes in him as a pass catcher. He's 1.62 yards per route run for his career. Also best in class, except for Marcus Yarns, I guess, was 1.74, whatever.
200 receptions, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, no, he only had 65 career receptions.
Oh, there was one guy that had a stupid amount. Maybe it's Woody.
That was Woody. Woody had 261 receptions, but he was only 1.13.
That was an elite offense his freshman year.
Yeah, exactly.
1.13 yards per out run for his career was Woody Marks. So, and the only other guy was Brashard Smith, who was a checks notes wide receiver for a while.
I want to just pile on one more thing. And Jax, I can't help but think of that excellent episode of The Undrafted where you had Matt Waldman on, and I think you guys talked a little bit about Janty, and he pointed out,
yes,
these are Waldman things that he notices, right? A dude that just primarily watches film, right? He pointed out the thing that makes Janty special is the same thing that Saquon has, right? Which is the stamina to finish runs at the end of games. After this guy has had 22 totes, he still will break off an 80-yarder and outrun everybody. It's a stamina issue. This is like superstar.
He was also talking, Joe, about the stamina inside a run, where guys tend to slow down as the burst of energy is gone. Mm-hmm. Like he still has all of his top speed available to him 30, 40 yards down the field, where a lot of guys are starting to, you know what I mean? He's still zooming along. He had this sort of run stamina that he couldn't really, quantify, but that does show in the 15-yard run rate, and the yak is greater than everybody else's before, total yards. All that stuff sort of plays into it. And we can talk all about it. I do still think all of this talent still is, he's going to be a running back in the NFL, which means he is somewhat, subject to the quality of the offense, which that's the only reason I'm not putting him at like the 101 overall in redraft or something like that. I do think that there are some limitations to potentially the offense that don't give him the touchdown upside of a Saquon.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. I think
It's
he
just
probably
it's not
like
there.
totally. And you just kind of hope he probably just makes some of those on his own, and just kind
He's
of
gonna.
reminds me of the Marshawn interview over and over
Yeah,
and over
yeah.
and over and over and
He's gonna
over
be
and
great,
over.
but only as great as he can be in a given scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to
I,
move to another exciting running back room here, boys. And that's where we're going to start with the Miami Dolphins, is in their running back room, because that's probably the sexiest spot. There's some bodies there now, too. Like Devon Achane is obviously the steamiest one. I've kind of like flipped a little bit. I was a little skeptical of the upside for 2025, especially, boys. I am back on team Achan. I just think the little bit of increase in targets that he's going to be getting from the Jonnu departure, and just the targets in general that guy's going to fucking get, on top of the explosiveness that he has as a rusher. He's going to be that. He's going to be fine. He's going to be great. So I want you guys to talk about what you think about his outlook and maybe how that Jonnu departure impacts it, and then kind of feed us into these other guys and how they might impact it too.
I don't know, Joe, if you think I don't know that Jonnu has too much to do with it. I think he was going to get a lot of targets regardless. I would say, I guess, Jonnu was getting some of those. Like last year, it really comes down to the offensive line as to what's going to happen with this team, because last year, Tua or whomever else was in the game needed to throw the ball so quickly that there was no Tyreek Hill down the middle of the field. There wasn't time. They were afraid that Tua was going to get hurt, and he did get hurt, and everybody else wasn't good enough to sort of get to those throws at the second level. So there's a lot of Jonnu dump off stuff. I forget there was a stat with him having caught like the most balls behind the line of scrimmage outside of all other, wide receivers and tight ends or something like that. So yeah, he was being targeted and like, here you go, make a play. And certainly he did. But, I think I think Devon Achane sort of steps in for those plays now a little bit more, because Darren Waller isn't that type of player. Let's face it. Right. So he's not the throw it to him at the line of scrimmage and let him make some sort of Geno Smith play. So even though Darren Waller comes in, and I just said, if he's healthy, I think I said on the undrafted, I said, if Darren Waller's healthy, he's the starting, tight end with volume on an NFL offense. So he has value. We talked about that. It was you and I, Trav, a couple weeks ago. So,
That's great.
while Darren Waller does have value in the middle part of the field, I don't think he really occupies the same type of targets that Geno Smith did. And so maybe that's a slight uptick for Devon Achane on those sort of the short stuff, right? But however you get the ball to Devon Achane, he is dangerous to take it to the house on every single time he touches it. So,
all right. So guys, you'd be just blown away at the amount that I've galaxy brained this offense and thought about this offense. And I'm going to give you two roads. One of them is kind of like easy to understand, and the other one is a tree. Right, so option one, they fix the offense and they go back to the 2023 version where Achane broke the single season record in yards per carry at, I think it was something north of 7. It was just like an absurd number. It was the most efficient rookie season we've ever seen. We'll take that. That's fine. That's totally fine. He showed last year he can be a little bit more of a workhorse. He can catch more passes, but we like long touchdowns too. So it's like, if we get that version of Achane, we win, right? Option two, let's say they haven't fixed the offensive line. Here's my galaxy brain thing. I think the reason they got rid of Jonnu is because Mike McDaniel was looking at this offense. He's like, okay, we got a bad offensive line. We're throwing these short, quick hitters to Achane. Great. And Jonnu, fine. But what if we could trade Jonnu for Waller, who actually can get downfield? And what if we had Waller and Tyreek Hill sort of switch spots in terms of who we're getting those quick behind the line of scrimmage dump offs to? And we had Waller stretching the seam. He's a freaking former wide receiver who runs like in the 4.5s, right? And we threw these dump offs to Tyreek Hill and screen game to Tyreek Hill and let him just go nuts because he's a demon with the ball in his hands. Jax, you just said that's not Waller's game. I completely agree with you. He's a field stretching, seam stretching tight end. So you give that to Tyreek instead of Jonnu Smith, and you make Waller stretch the defense along with Waddle. Like, that's a much more efficient and dangerous offense. And if the offensive line is working, great. Go down the field to Waller or Waddle or Tyreek. But we're talking about Achane. Either way, he wins.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If it's the quick dump off game or if it's the much more efficient downfield passing attack, which opens lanes for Achane, the only way Achane loses is if he gets hurt, right? He's either the focal point of the receiving game with a high volume of, low percentage runs, or I should say low efficiency runs plus the passing game, or the vertical game is back and the efficiency increases. We can't lose outside of injury. And he's potentially an absolute league wrecker in some hybrid of those two, which is the most likely outcome. It's not going to be as bad as last year. It's not going to be as good as before. Some hybrid of the two seems the most likely. So I'm all in on Achane and just hope to God he stays healthy.
And I think that comes down to like my biggest question is what does the volume look like, right? Because he doesn't have a Raheem Mostert behind him. He does have Alex Madison, who they brought in, which is an interesting conversation. I love Jalen Wright. Yeah, I know, but he could be fucking annoying, right? Alex Madison could be so annoying because he's the veteran presence who can block. You know what I mean?
No, he's awful.
He terrible. Is awful.
He's not going to make the team.
I hope not. But I
honestly don't think he makes.
There is a chance.
Look, the only reason he's going to make the team is because there's literally no one else behind Wright and Ollie Gordon. But he's really bad. He's really,
having
really bad.
Like carrying 4 running backs is kind of tough, right? So. Like anybody
they've done it the last couple years. They've carried 4 running backs.
So. Maybe carry a lot of running backs. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I think like I'm glad that you said that, Jax, because I've been pondering like, is Madison going to fuck all this up? So I like that you say that. And
it doesn't fit what they want to do. If they want a meat shield, that's why they got Ollie Gordon. He's a dude that can catch passes to be the meat shield
from day one, though, Joe. Like, are they going to trust him in that role from day one? I don't think they're gonna.
That's what training camp's for. That's why they have Madison, is in case they can't trust Gordon to do it.
Yeah, and ultimately, meat shield, that's fine. I mean, Madison isn't going to take away anything
not
that
from Achane does. I'm not talking about Achane. I'm talking about Jalen Wright and Ollie Gordon, right? Like, because I think like my stance on Jalen Wright, which is who I'm kind of centering this around, is that he is going to be viable for fantasy football. Like I think he can be a running back 3 in that somewhat of a Raheem Mostert role, because we don't want Devon Achane getting 250 plus carries, right? So somebody else is going to have to take some carries here. Mike McDaniel has showed that that's what he wants to do. And so I'm trying to sort out if that's going to be Jalen Wright. I want it to be him. I'm kind of making that call that it's going to be him. So I'm trying to figure out how viable that is, right? And I think Madison potentially, if he's the only reliable blocker there, could fuck that up a little bit.
Maybe, I suppose, but I think Jalen Wright will get the opportunity. I think he's good, actually.
He is good.
He's not great.
No.
He's not like some sort of special player, but he's a special physical play. He's got physical traits, and when you're just giving a guy, it's like the Bashal Tootin, which we'll get to. Jalen Wright kind of reminds me of that a little bit, where it's like he's not like this amazing talent, but he's very physically gifted. And in this offense, if they are cooking, that's the thing, is like last year was a totally different year. I mean, nothing was open. So you're asking a guy with physical gifts to do what exactly,
Exactly.
So yeah, I think it's a little bit of a different situation. Two is also, and we didn't get there, but I think, when we talked about the values, I just think all the quarterbacks, you go through it. Geno, nobody's really excited for Geno. People are certainly down on Tua, as is Mr. Joquave over there for sure. But Tua, if the offensive line is good, if they can give him the 2.8 seconds to throw the football, he's got weapons and he's been able to deliver the ball. He's an interesting cat, because if he's able to stay healthy and the offensive line is good, the ceiling is a back-end quarterback 1.
Yeah,
but the floor is scary.
Is fucking retired. And like they did bring in, so they at the top of the second they drafted offensive lineman out of Arizona, and then they brought in James Daniels, a guard. I think he's a former Patriot, isn't he? I don't think he's coming from the Patriots, but I think he might be a former Patriot. But they brought him in to help with the O-line, so I think that
they lost Armstead. I mean,
I don't know if it's going to
hard
be
to
like good, but it might be better than last year because last year was fucking terrible. I just have a greasy one on Jalen Wright here, boys, and it's greasy because the threshold is 50 carries. So it's only 50, like a 50. Well, it's maybe that's less greasy because the pool is bigger. But of running backs with 50 carries, Jalen Wright was 14th in explosive run rate with 5.9% and 23rd in missed tackles forced per attempt. So I think he, in this offense especially, like think about this offense if both him and Achane are running pure as Achane the 1A and Jalen Wright the 1B. I think that's like a locked in flex spot potentially. So I'm pretty stoked for Jalen Wright.
My recollection was when Wright didn't get hit in the backfield, he actually was pretty damn good. But
Yeah.
when he did get hit in the backfield, he was not super effective. And that's an offensive line issue. And if the offensive line is better, and I don't think they got better from a talent standpoint, but from a schematic standpoint, that's the hope. I think there's two categories of running back on this team, clearly, which is why I think they may carry four. I think it's the fast dude that can catch some passes and the big dude that can catch some passes, and they're going to use them in different situations in the game. No question, though. I think Wright is the direct backup to Achane, and Madison or Gordon are going to be the primary meat shield that can catch passes, which they're both kind of adequate at. I think Ollie's a better pass catcher than Madison is, and they both probably have a role.
Probably Wright too. He's probably a better pass catcher than Wright. But that's kind of why I like Wright, is because he's got that speed combo and he's 220. You know what I mean? Like he's got the size too.
I think the question would be if Achane got hurt, what's the solution then? What happens? But I don't want to think about that. But I think it's probably so murky that it's really just take the cheapest one, or what, you know what I mean? Just sort of
maybe
play the hits where you can. I mean, who knows what'll happen? Maybe they bring a guy in. Even we've seen that before. I just want to point this out. I know I'm ringing a bell again, but 2 years ago, Tua was the quarterback 9 in fantasy. Last year, he was the quarterback 22 in only 11 games. I mean, he actually afforded himself very well. He had 19 touchdowns in just 11 games as well. So, this Tua thing, he's prolific. He's actually very good when he plays.
Yeah.
He could be a buy low. Obviously I understand the risk here, which is immense, but wherever you're buying Tua, in a lot of situations, people are very, very scared. I hear a lot of experts saying that this team could be the train wreck team. This could be the team that absolutely implodes. That this could be the worst team.
It could be either.
I see that. I do understand that take. I'm not like that's a dumb take, but I don't feel like it's like, oh yeah, for sure. I see the other side too, where it's like if they can get a little bit, a little overachieving offensive line play. Everything changes. Everything changes.
I lean that way too, Jay. I lean that they're going to be an above average offense versus a tear it all down offense.
Yeah.
Like there's too much talent.
My two notes on the Dolphins, because we have all these teams. I have player takes, but my two notes on Dolphins is, what if we're wrong and they're actually good again?
Yeah, dude.
And my other note / question is, and this plays into my earlier point, what if they got rid of Jonnu because they knew they didn't want to run the offense that way, right? That was a losing brand of football.
Totally. Right. And I think that kind of brings us into the next topic on the Dolphins here is, if they are that and they do bounce back and they're going to be really good, then these wide receivers are going to be an insane value, boys. Like Jalen Waddle actually goes ahead of Tyreek Hill in dynasty drafts right now as the wide receiver 29th, mid 7th round. I have no problem with that price for Jalen Waddle. Tyreek is going as the wide receiver 33 at the top of the 8th round. And I know, like, we talked a little bit about it within the last couple of weeks about potentially if he loses that speed, he's fucked. But if he got, like, his speed was crazy. So if he loses like 2% of his speed, he's still pretty fucking fast. And so
if he's a 97 still in Madden, we're good with it.
And not a 99. I think we're still okay with that, right? And so wide receiver, these are wide receiver 3 prices for the guys that are pretty clear 1 and 2 on a team that kind of needs them to produce this year, right? So I think those guys are great values, and I'm kind of buying into both of them. And I previously have not liked Jalen Waddle because of his fragility, but I'm still, every time I see it, I'm surprised by the fact that he played a full season last year.
He was so bad last year.
Yeah, he was terrible, but he played all the games, which is kind of a small victory, right?
I think he played in 15 games last year. He had 827 yards, which was down from, year 2, he had almost 1,400 yards. And that was when it was like, oh my God, what do we have?
It was like
here?
the best rookie season of all time from a wide receiver at that point or something.
That was year 2, but yes. Yeah, season, he was like a short A dot sort of specialist. Year 2, he became a downfield guy.
That's right.
Year 3, he had 1,051 yards. He was kind of a hybrid of the two. Right, year 2 is definitely the best. We had nearly 1,400 yards and 8 touchdowns. Then last year, it all kind of came crashing down, but so did the whole offense, aside from Jonnu. Yep. And like even Achan's efficiency came way down. The only highlight, Achan for fantasy purpose was still fantastic, but like Jonnu was the only like overperformer. Achan we kind of expected to be great. He was just great in a different way. So yeah, if they're back, I expect him to get somewhere between 2022 and 2023. Jalen Waddle, he's still very much in his prime, entering year 5, which that would be somewhere around 1,100 yards and 5 or 6 touchdowns. That's kind of what we hope for. I think that's what we expect for Waddle.
Totally. And if he does get some of those short Johnny Smith targets, then he can do some work after the catch as well as taking some of that downfield stuff. So I don't mind the outlook.
Didn't mean to bury the lead, but on the Raiders, I think we overlooked a huge issue, which was there's a gentleman in the wide receiver core named Tommy Malott. I mean, I don't know. Just saying. That's
so we're gonna circle all the way back from finishing the Dolphins to talk about Tommy Malott of the Raiders. Jax,
I'd be remiss. I'd be remiss. No, I'm just saying Tommy Malott. I mean, believe he's the lunch pail king that was. I don't know what he looks like. Don't know where he went.
So he's rocking
His
a
name
lunch
is
pail.
Tommy
You should have said that.
Malott.
Talk about burying the lead. He's a white dude.
Unbelievable. Is he? I have no idea, just so you know. No
Fucking
clue.
Sounds like it. Got to find out now.
He sounds like a lunch pail king. That's what I'm saying.
He is a quarterback that they're turning into a wide receiver.
Of course he is. Look at that.
Yeah, definitely. He holds a lunch pail.
I'm just going to say no.
Yeah. Can confirm.
Ryan Tannehill? Unbelievable.
Can confirm.
Reverse Ryan
Tannehill? Yeah. But I think that I don't even know how to fucking kick us back into this after that.
Go to the Colts.
Yeah, go to the Colts. What a segue, ladies and gentlemen. Like the Colts are something else to try and break down, guys. It feels like their mascot with like that horse who is kicking the rider or trying to get the rider off is kind of fitting for the ride that we might go on with this team this season. Quarterback room kind of centers it all and is the biggest conversation, I think. It seems to me like this is probably Danny Dimes' job. And I think Joe would just pose you the question, like, obviously elaborate and go into what you want to, but if Danny Dimes starts all season, can we feel comfortable with him as our super flex quarterback too? And not necessarily from the fantasy points that he's putting up perspective, from the fact that the bottom isn't going to completely drop out on him making the most boneheaded plays of all time to make this team actually go back to Anthony Richardson.
The best thing that could happen for fantasy purpose, well, I mean, I got to temper my comment here a little bit. Danny Dimes, no, I don't think you can feel comfortable with him as your quarterback too, because there's this one single problem, which is he's not good. He's not a good quarterback. Yeah. So this is a finite window in time where we might get a Sam Darnold season out of him, but like, is his value going to go up? Listen, I tried so hard to sell Sam Darnold for firsts, and I couldn't get them, right? So like from a value standpoint, Danny Dimes is like, in the gutter, and he can kind of climb out of the gutter, just like to the lip of the gutter, just poke his head out. And that's where we're at right now. And even if he has a great season, let's say they make the playoffs and just have a first round exit, I think he still basically stays there. But if he's the quarterback, we feel good about the rest of this offense. And that's why we're rooting for Danny Dimes. And that's why we're in this weird position, because I seem to remember this one time where Danny Dimes threw 140 passes to Wan'Dale Robinson. And the Colts have this guy named Josh Downs, who's better than Wan'Dale Robinson in every single way, but can do all the same stuff and get open in the same areas of the field where Mr. Check Down Dimes likes to throw. So I think if he's named the starter, Like Wan'Dale Robinson is a freaking rocket ship.
Josh Downs.
He means Josh Downs.
Excuse me, I meant Josh Downs. Excuse me, I meant
Freudian
Josh
slip.
Clipping that though. Clipping that.
God damn it.
Thank
you.
you.
You know what I meant.
That's a gem.
And then I would also say that it's like better for Pittman. It's better for Taylor. It's literally better for everybody except for Richardson and all the Richardson bag holders who were banking on that rushing floor. That's what you get when you only have rushing floor, though. But like that being said, Richardson had the like worst completion percentage we've ever seen last season. He like was like in the mid 40s, which is just atrocious. It's not starting quarterback level. The second worst we've ever seen is like Daniel Jones, who's in like the high 40s. So it's like, what do we win when we win? And it's just like a Josh Downs doing a Wan'Dale Robinson impression, and hopefully Pittman returning to something like a wide receiver 2 or 3, and some room for some room for our boy Jonathan Taylor to run. That's and I don't know. I don't know how to parse the tight end situation. But anyways, Jax, go ahead. I've been talking too long.
I think you're right on the money. I don't know about this quarterback situation. I mean, I think you said it when you said Danny Dimes isn't good, and that's kind of the prevailing thought that I have. It's like, they're going to fade Anthony Richardson as the quarterback. There's a guy who's been starting in the NFL who's going to be there. It's Daniel Jones. I'm going to get him, and then you're like, what am I going to get with Daniel Jones? Like, is it going to be any good? It probably won't be because he's not good.
And when you win, yeah,
right. And that's the thing about this team that is really confounding is like they really should just be still sticking with Anthony Richardson and letting the ship sink with him until it's done, until you're like, Anthony Richardson is not the answer. We're moving on. Not, we'll see kind of who plays better. No, dude, that's dumb. So I still think there's so much. Look, if you've already decided that Anthony Richardson ain't it, then it's a Trey Lance situation. You're moving on, and if everybody else in the NFL agrees that he's terrible, like Trey Lance, like they did with Trey Lance, then we've got to deal with that as fantasy managers too. But I do think there's something at least that is undiscovered with Anthony Richardson. He does possess, unlike Trey Lance, incredible physical gifts. Trey Lance was sold to us as this Konami player. He was never fast. He was never dominant athletically. He was never prolific at the college level. He was an efficient game manager for a Division III school for 1 year. It's like, what are we talking about? And the NFL realized that. And maybe we it's like I watched the Quarterback on Netflix. You watch the show, and these guys are supercomputers, man. There's just so much you have to do pre-snap, everything is so complex and has to be managed so quickly that whether these guys are good or not almost is less important than whether or not they can handle it. And then if they're good, it's like, that's a bonus. They have to handle it first. And we just never know who these guys are. Maybe Anthony Richardson is that guy. I mean, he has had problems with completion percentage and accuracy. I think a lot of that is not physical gifts. That's preparation gifts and knowing where everything's going to be. And it's not that he can't throw the ball effectively. I bet you if there was a throwing contest, he'd probably be pretty good at it. Look at Lamar Jackson. When there was an actual throwing contest, he was bad. But because he is so freaking awesome and he is a supercomputer and he can digest everything quickly and make great plays, he does so on the field. So, these things are tough for us to determine. All that said, that big, long diatribe of nothing, I don't like either guy, but if I'm making a bet, I still want to bet on Anthony Richardson because of the upside. When it comes to the wide receivers, I love Josh Downs. I guess you're right. Josh Downs could be the guy, but listen to this. 2021, 129 targets. 2022, 141. 2023, 156. Even 2024, 111 targets. You all know I'm talking about Michael Pittman. This dude has earned targets with bad quarterback play. I mean, can you name all the quarterbacks that were throwing him the ball over those past years? Like, they literally went from, wasn't it like, Matt Ryan was 1 year? Like, what? It was bad, right?
Yeah.
Like,
maybe
it just
even
wasn't
going back to the Rivers when they tried out Rivers for that season.
Yeah, it was like
that was definitely Rivers was in that, and Matt Ryan was in that.
Matt Ryan, right? It's
Gardner.
like, I mean, Just a lot
Gardner
of
Minshew. Yeah, that's right.
a lot of guys on their last breath, in the
Mhm.
NFL. Like Rivers and Ryan were like, yeah, I'm gonna hang it up. This is all I got.
Yeah.
Not sure it's much better now, though. Not sure it's much better now.
It's
I don't
not.
think it is. I don't think it is.
It's
I
not.
want to be clear. The reason I was selling Downs is because I see where Daniel Jones likes to throw, and
Sure.
that's the guys like Wan'Dale Robinson. Pittman, I mean, the 3 years prior to this one, he was the wide receiver 14, the wide receiver 21, and the wide receiver 22, right? He was great. I mean, that's just
Pretty
a
good.
solid, rock solid wide receiver 2 for 3 years in a row. And last year, he played the whole season basically with a broken back. So, like literally
Yeah.
broken vertebrae, broken bones in his back. He just was like, I'm going to
Only
play
missed
through it.
one
It's fine.
game.
Yeah. So, I think they actually have 2 really good receivers and a great receiving tight end. I mean, like, literally all the skill pieces are there. They're just missing the most important one where they took a swing and a miss. And yeah, Jax, I completely agree with you. They should ride Richardson into the ground and go down with the ship. But what that means is people get fired and nobody wants to get
That's it.
fired. So, clinging to Daniel Jones is their damn lifeboat. I mean, they should have traded.
They're literally hoping and praying. It's true.
Yeah.
They are. They're just hoping and
Totally.
praying that some of this works. What does this all mean? I just think it means that it's a slightly suppressed offense, but technically it's better with Daniel Jones than it is with Anthony Richardson, at least as far as we can tell. I think either way, Jonathan Taylor's fine. He's a running back 1 because he's awesome. He's another one of those situations where Jonathan Taylor may be awesome, but he can only elevate his game as much as the offense will allow him. Same take as Ashton Genty.
I think he could be one of those, like, if he's getting some targets, you know what I mean? They can be shitty and he's still going to be awesome. And,
a lot of ifs.
But totally. And I'm not saying that he needs like 70 plus or anything like that. You give him 40 to 50 or something like that, and I think he's going to be great. I honestly think like he's a guy who could present sneaky running back 1 overall upside for the season, and he's not really getting any conversation about that. Just if he pops off in the run game, like they're going to want to go through the run with these quarterbacks. They are not at all going to be trying to rely on these guys as passers necessarily. And both of those quarterbacks can run a little bit. We've seen that be good for running backs as well. So I think Jonathan Taylor is sneaky and not getting talked about. I mean, he's going as probably like the running back 6 or 7 or something. So it's not like he's getting pushed too far back or anything like that. But I do think that is potentially in his ceiling if he has a big spike touchdown season. He'd have to make a bunch of those on his own though.
He's the kind of running back that can finish as the running back 1 overall in a good environment. We've seen it happen before. Interestingly enough, Mike Clay's got him slated for 38 targets, 27 receptions.
Yeah.
Right? Nearly 1,400 yards rushing, plus another 200 receiving, and 10 touchdowns rushing, 1 receiving.
Can I guess all the targets that Mike Clay? I haven't seen it. Can I just guess?
I am so curious to hear the wide receivers.
God, yes, let's go.
Yeah, do it, Jax.
Okay, so I'm going to say Pittman for 118.
108, close.
I'm going to say Downs for 101.
94.
There we
close.
go.
That'd be a career low. That would be a career low for Josh Downs.
Alec Pierce, 75.
It's the first time you're more than 10% off. He's got him for 51.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's fair.
That means Adonai Mitchell is around the same.
55.
Yeah. You either need to split those guys down the middle or give more. I was going to give more to Alec Pierce. I was going to be like 70 and 50, but 50 and 50 makes sense. Yeah. And then Tyler Warren, 82.
Yeah.
Oh, you started out right.
78?
75.
I was like, well, he's got, but that's the thing. Like this is where the pain is, right? Because that's all pain. None of that was good.
No, and that's probably best case Ontario if we think about these quarterbacks, right? Like you're talking about, like obviously he might not have 49% completions, but if you take that 49% completions and you spread it out across 5 dudes, it's going to look shitty for all of them, I think, regardless. It's better than Anthony Richardson, but probably still shitty for all of them.
I would like to point out that he's got Anthony Richardson starting 10 games and throwing 289 attempts versus Daniel Jones starting 7 games and throwing 201 attempts. So I don't know if this has changed since then. We'll see how things are shaking out in training camp. I'm sure the Colts want to do what Jax laid out, but there's a point in time where the team's giving up on Anthony Richardson. It seemed like it happened last season over that stupid play where he said he pulled himself out because he was tired and people completely flipped on him. And in real time, I thought that was like the dumbest thing. I was like, yeah, well, that was an unselfish thing to do. He was tired. But I think what the team was really saying is, we're looking for a reason to turn on this dude.
Yeah.
He's not working hard enough. He's not our leader, right?
Great
they were looking for a reason. And like, because if he was doing all those other things and said, like, I need a breather, they'd believe him. Right. But when a dude says he's tired and he pulls himself out and the team turns on him completely, something else is happening. And in real time, I didn't see it. But after reflecting on it for a while, I was like, oh, yeah, they hate this guy.
Yeah.
Like, that's really what's going on.
Yeah.
Yep. Bingo, fellas. We're gonna
sadness. That's a sad one. That's a sad one.
That's
is
a fucking sad one. What could have been? What could have been?
Yep.
Okay.
There's always the CFL. You know, Trav, he may still be back in your life.
The whole team is sad, though. I mean, I just drafted Michael Pittman in like the 10th or 11th round in the Scott Fish Bowl, and it was like,
I know they're so cheap too. Like they should be smashing values, but you still don't feel great about them. You know what I mean? Michael Pittman. I also have
Scott Fish Bowl. How many players do we have in common in the Scott Fish Bowl?
We're talking about I don't have Pittman.
The very few receivers I have, it's Myers and Pittman.
I think those are the only 2 receivers I do have. Actually,
I have one more. I can't remember who it is. It's just like, who could be a wide receiver too, but is not going for that price. That was my strategy.
I actually am a little heavier. We talked about this on the podathon, but I'm heavier on wideouts in that, which is a little bit contrarian, but I kind of like it.
That's almost always the way I play it, but son of a gun, the draft didn't fall that way for me, so I had to go.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
Those are my only 2. That's my wide receiver 1 and 2. Jacoby Myers and Michael Pittman. Let's go.
Trav changed the subject. I'm gonna pull mine up.
Go
ahead, Trav.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Seattle Seahawks, guys, and I think there's a bunch of conversations to be had here at every level of this offense. And I think looking at, like, the main one I want to start with is Kenneth Walker, guys, because looking at Sam Darnold, obviously he was brought in to be the starting quarterback. I think
Tataroa McMillan is the other receiver.
There you go. That's nice. That's nice.
Sorry to completely cut you off, even though I absolutely did that on purpose.
Yeah, just completely blurt it out when you know it. By the way, I have Ken Walker on my team. You know?
Yeah. Yes.
Like that.
Sorry, what are we talking about? Seahawks?
Yeah, we are going to talk about the Seahawks. Yeah. Because I think, like, Sam Darnold coming in, they're not going to just let him start slinging it around all over the place.
They're not going to let Sam cook.
They're not going to let Sam cook, no.
Sam cook. Good
and I think he needs to be insulated, which means to me, I think Kenneth Walker, if we're talking about guys who could be sneaky top 5 finishers, I said Jonathan Taylor could be a sneaky running back 1 overall finisher. Kenneth Walker could be a sneaky top 5 finisher at running back this season. I think Charbonnet's involvement is a bit of a factor in that, but I think for me, everything around Clint Kubiak coming in is positive for me. And so I'm big on Kenneth Walker as one of those last guys that you can draft, I feel like, who has that kind of upside. What's your take, Jax, on Kenneth Walker's upside here and your thoughts on the involvement of one Zach Charbonnet in the Seahawks' new look offense?
I think Ken Walker is a perfect running back for a team that's good at football with a good run blocking scheme, because he does make a lot of, like, you know, what do you want to call him? Like, he tries to make something out of nothing sometimes.
Tackles forced.
Yeah, he breaks tackles. He makes people miss. And, you know, if that, like I said, I don't remember when the hell I said it, might have been on my show, but if you're making people miss down the field or at the second level or to get to the second level, what a cool play that is. If you're doing that in the backfield, sometimes you're losing 2 yards when you could have gained 2. And so that's an inefficient runner on a team that needs you to just kind of churn out 2 yards a clip, you know. But when it's blocked well and he can use some of that skill and that explosion to make big plays, it's awesome. Mm-hmm. So it just sort of depends. I think they have a perfect complement to him and Charbonnet, who they both can do it all. You know, the sneaky thing with Ken Walker has been the target share. He's actually been pretty commendable out of the backfield when we didn't see that coming out of Michigan State. Just because that's how they played. So long story short here is I love Ken Walker. I also do have him in the Scott Fish Bowl. He was my 4th round pick. Went, just so that people know, McCaffrey, Achane, Breece Hall, Ken Walker. I love Ken Walker, in this format. But also, I think he has huge RB1, I don't know about overall, but top end RB1 finish in his range of outcomes if he can stay healthy. I don't exactly know. They got Gray Zabel. I love that dude in the 1st round. So I don't know their offensive line entirely, but I just, they're
trying.
I'm looking at, they're trying, right? So they did add to their offensive line. It wasn't very good last year, but adding Gray Zabel, I don't know if they were nicked up or whatever. I don't know exactly who was bad. I just know they were. But if they can turn things around on that offensive line, that goes a long way with Ken Walker for sure.
I co-sign in terms of like the sneaky receiving ability of Ken Walker and how we've seen that sort of unlocked. And we talked about this probably in March when we were talking about coaching changes and everything.
Yes.
This scheme is perfect for Ken Walker's skill set. We are talking about a stretch, wide zone. Give him the room. Let him find the lane to make that cut and go. We've already seen over the last few years how good he is at eluding tackles in the backfield when a penetration does get through. Damn it, dude. He's had to do it more than just about anybody, and his effort is A++ always, and then he breaks those long ones. You stretch it out a little bit and you give him the option to figure out which way he's going to go in terms of like hole he picks when you go to the left or to the right. He's going to crush from a rushing efficiency standpoint in this offense so long as it is healthy. I actually think it's a bad fit for Charbonnet, who I love, my fellow UCLA Bruin. I love Charbonnet. I love Damian Martinez too. As you guys know, I don't think it's a great fit for him either. I think this is the Ken Walker show, and he's going to catch passes. This is like a great offense for him. Think about what Alvin Kamara did. He had like one of his best rushing seasons ever at age 30 last year, 29 or 30. How was it? Anyways, he had one of his best rushing seasons ever with a Kubiak offense in place and garbage at quarterback, and all the receivers were dead. Right? This is shaping up to be a beautiful season for Ken Walker, assuming health, which is a huge assumption.
Yeah.
But assuming health. So, Jax, I think you said he's got running back 1 overall upside. I completely agree. That is in the bag for Walker of possibilities. And if he stays healthy, just one more thing. Darnold's the quarterback. I think we are all lukewarm, just one toe in and terrified to get the rest of our foot in on Darnold.
Yep.
If Milroe comes in and becomes the quarterback and you get this Alfred Morris corollary to go with Ken Walker, it gets even more outrageous.
You probably lose targets there, though. You probably lose targets on that one.
Yeah, he loses targets, but he gains a lot of rushing efficiency. And so I don't know. There's just lots of outs for Walker, and the only downside I see is really injury, which is a big consideration.
Yeah, I mean, I know the offense changes, and I know the quarterback changes, so this changes. But targets are earned to some degree, not at the running back position, a little bit different. But he had 35 and 37 targets in his first 2 seasons in 15 games. Projecting somewhere around 40 or something like that. Last year, he had 53 targets in only 11 games. I think one of those he left, injured. So, he's averaging about, 5 targets per game, which checks math. That's like 80 targets, right? 80, 90 targets. I mean, that's crazy. That's not what I expect at all. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying he showed that type of target potential when the coaching staff sort of trusted him in that way.
Clay's got him for 60 targets over 14 games played. So that's pretty close to the pace you're talking about.
Yep. Yeah, that's nice. We like that, because if he does that, he's probably going to have more than the 1 receiving touchdown he's had each of the past 2 seasons too. So wheels are up for old Kenny Walks, guys. I think like the next thing we're going to talk about these wide receivers, guys, because it's an interesting fucking thing to dive into. It's a really, I think I have a good take on it, and you guys know how I feel about JSN. I love him. We talked about him previously. I'm a JSN over Lad guy myself personally, so I am very bullish.
Too far.
Hey, to each
Too
their own.
far.
To each their own. But when we look at these usage and roles, guys, I've been projecting
Canadian take.
Yeah,
Canadian.
yeah, for sure. So better than yours is what you're saying. Okay, great. I've been pumping JSN because I think the downfield and the outside work is going to increase heavily for him with no more DK Metcalf. I put out a hilarious tweet today, guys, because it was the smallest sample size ever. So I talked about that greasy one for Jalen Wright with a 50 carry threshold. I use RotoViz game splits app to get the splits for JSN when DK plays and when DK doesn't. He only played 3 games without DK over the past 2 seasons, so obviously nothing you can hang your hat on. But it was insane. Like the 17 game pace was like 22 PPR points per game, over 1,700 yards, and he was scoring like in those 3 games. I guess he scored a touchdown in each of those 3 games because his pace was 17 touchdowns. So I thought the tweet was captioned, "Do you like fun?" Because I obviously knew that it wasn't anything great, but I think that is like the extremist version of what I think is potentially going to happen for JSN this year with the amount he's going to play out wide. So what say you guys to that? And how do you feel, despite your feelings about my JSN versus Lad McConkey take? I don't want you to shit on JSN because you want to shit on me. I can take that. Don't give that to JSN, please.
Go ahead, Joe.
I mentioned on an episode a few weeks ago when we were talking about JSN that when DK was out is when we finally started seeing him get some intermediate and deep targets, and how freaking good he was at it. He was making those catches, right? And so I think my argument at the time was like, I think Kupp is going to be the primary slot receiver, and they'll probably alternate a little bit. They'll both probably be around, I don't know, 40%, right? With one other receiver kind of mixing in. But like, I think JSN is going to be the intermediate sort of deep guy, and Kupp is going to primarily be a slot guy because that's where he's best suited at this stage of his career. And JSN proved that he can win on the intermediate and deep stuff. So I'm actually pretty interested. I think we're going to see his, targets and catches maybe come down on a per route basis, but we're going to see a drastic increase in efficiency for JSN. So I love JSN. I don't know. I got some takes on Kupp too, but before I do that, Jax, why don't you give us your 2 cents?
I'd like to hear your Kupp take too, because I think they kind of go hand in hand.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
fine. I'll keep going. So Kupp last year, 29.22 targets per 29% targets per route run, 2.13 yards per route run. For the way Kupp was talked about after he came back from injury. People just talked about him like he couldn't get separation. He was worthless. He was dead. And yeah, maybe that was the case. But boy, dude, he was on pace to be awesome before he got hurt last year. So he was great. And like if you look at the overall numbers from last season over 12 games, it's like, dude, out of all the receivers we're talking about tonight, the only receiver that has a higher target per route run number was Josh Downs. The only wide receiver with a higher yards per route run number was Brian Thomas, who we haven't gotten to yet, and Josh Downs. So like the underlying key metrics are still pretty good on Kupp. I know that he seemed to fade last season, but we have to remember he's an older dude coming off of injury. That's not to say that he can't get re-injured. That's not to say that it can't happen again, and you're buying a higher risk asset. But as long as he's healthy, I think that he's still a pretty viable wide receiver. Granted, 66% of his targets or 66% of his routes were from the slot last year. So I think that's where they want to use him, which is why I'm saying JSN, who proved he can win in the intermediate and deep stuff when DK was out last year, is going to be occupying that portion of the field with the ability to slide into the slot. That was a long take.
No, it's good.
You asked for it.
I did want to. I'm so dubious of Cooper Kupp. First of all, you said until he got hurt. He is a little older. He certainly, if you were making bets on receivers that will likely get hurt.
Week 5.
But he'd be one of the guys you'd place some bets on.
Yeah.
Like, if you're like, you have to pick a player who's going to play wide receiver and is going to get hurt this year. First round draft pick, you'd be like, Cooper Kupp available?
Mm.
You'd wanna know when Cooper Kupp is available in that draft. So it just is, man. It's just that's where we're at with this guy. And I can't help but think of the McVay Stafford. They love this guy. Like they don't not love him. You can't tell me that they don't love him. Yep. And they were like, yeah, just get out of here, man. We're good. We don't even know who we're gonna get yet, but it'll probably be better than you. Oh, look, Devontae's available. Cool. We were already over you. You were gone. Like they didn't replace him with Devontae. They got rid of him and then got Devontae.
Yeah,
it just says a lot. That says a lot.
One of my bullet points. I always try and question myself and argue myself when I'm making these points. One of my bullet points is, why did the Rams give up on a historic player for their franchise?
I think
right. So exact same point.
I think
with amazing relationships.
I think the talent's part of it for sure, and like the decline. I think some of that was that they saw that they had a new generational wide receiver in Puka Nacua to cannibalize some of that. Sorry, boys, I just had a puff and I'm trying to recover from it here. Woo! It was a good one though. And so, and
that must be where all those JSN over lad takes come from.
No, absolutely not. But I deserved that for sure, and I served that up on a silver platter. And if you didn't take it, I would have been disappointed. So that was great. Yeah, I think some of it could have been the money that they're gonna have to that they were shelling out for Cooper Kupp was part of that too. All of that is to say, like, I think Cooper Kupp, like for me, Joe, some of that efficiency that is still potentially there, I think some of that is Stafford and McVay adjusted, right? And that's not to say that Kubiak and Darnold can't make him viable still, because I think they will, but more so to like a wide receiver 2-3 level, where I don't necessarily expect that efficiency. And if you get that, you're going to be happy about it. It's kind of the cherry on top. But even as a wide receiver 3, I don't feel great about him on my team because of that injury status. But JSN is kind of the whole thing we need to talk about here. Because if you're a Cooper Kupp holder, what are you doing? You selling him for nothing? No, you're just kind of going to be hopeful that he can get by on volume. Because I think that's what he's going to have to do. Because in this offense, I don't see him being extra efficient. But I think that he can be serviceable on some volume by way of the fact that this is a funnel, guys. There's not really a third wide receiver that's going to emerge in 2025, at least. The tight ends are still up in the air. And so I think that's what Cooper Kupp is going to get by on. And then any efficiency on that is just a cherry on top. But JSN, guys, the Vapors, boys. I was looking up some JSN stuff this week and talking about what he's been able to do from out wide. We look at last year. It wasn't.
Chap, I'm going to ask you to just hit the pause button on your take right now, just for 1 second. I want to hear it. I just want to answer my own question, which is, why did the Rams give up on a historic player for their franchise? The best I could come up with, the only thing that makes sense is he's too redundant with Puka, or Puka's too redundant and better at the things that Kupp used to do for them.
Yeah.
So they realized that Kupp was dispensable, and they needed another player that could occupy a different portion of the field. So that being said, please continue, because I want to hear about these JSN deep targets, intermediate stuff, because that's my argument too.
Totally. And I think just to kind of cap off your point there too, I think Devontae provides a lot of what Cooper provides, but he provides a lot more X value on the outside as well, with that ability and red zone prowess and stuff as well. And so a lot of people might
on the line, he's beating fools still.
100%. And so looking at JSN and where I think that spike is going to come from, like he has been like a fairly slot heavy player, especially last season. He was mega slot heavy, but with Cooper Kupp there, his usage has to be more on the outside. And in 2024, like it wasn't really good from the outside, right? He only got 88 routes from the outside in 2024, which was a 60% decrease from his rookie season, and only 11 targets from the outside, which was more than a 75% decrease on what he did in his rookie season.
Are you talking about lining up at X? Or
just from the outside, just from outside alignment. So it could be X, it could be flanker, anything that's not slot.
Got it. Okay.
So in his rookie year, though, boys, he ran 139 routes from outside, and he had the 14th best yards per route run in the league from out wide for, I think, wide receivers who ran like 50 routes from out there. He had the 4th highest targets per route run with 0.33, which is insane numbers. And so he can earn targets from outside when he's there, and he can be efficient on those targets as well. So I
That
think
jives perfectly with what I was saying, which is like, and I didn't even
he's
use
going to
stats
be
to back it up. It's like
incredible.
when we saw him outside, we saw him do great outside, but
He
you're
was
saying he
dope.
played very little, which was like those couple games DK missed.
Yeah.
And he was really good at it, which
Mhm.
is exactly what I observed. That's great.
Totally.
I love when stats align with
That
my
was the
worldview.
2023 numbers in his rookie year, but that
Okay.
kind of included there too, right? The underlying metrics in 2024 didn't look good, but when you get 11 targets on that, you're not going to be able to really have much opportunity to look good, right? So all of that is music to my ears, Joe. I think he's going to be dope, and I think that all supports my JSN over Lad take. But Jax, I would like to give you a chance to step in here and talk about JSN isolated from Lad.
No, look, to me, it's not really that close, but it's fine. I've just been questioning whether or not JSN is a sell at ceiling right now, because he's basically a top 12 dynasty wide receiver at value. You can look up and down, the dynasty landscape. He is right around Lad McConkey, so I guess you could certainly fashion a trade with someone like Trav to get Lad, apparently.
Yeah.
It's funny because once you get after JSN, there's a lot of question marks. I know Garrett Wilson just got his money. I think Garrett Wilson's a fine target. I mean, he's earned targets at a very high level. You could argue that Garrett Wilson, should be ahead of JSN in Dynasty.
I am Wilson over JSN.
It's close enough, but then you have the two rookies, Travis Hunter and Tet McMillan. There's no chance, I think they should be there at this particular point yet. That's just my take. But Rashee Rice and T Higgins, look, you really have to maybe make a move further down or something like that. I don't know. I guess he's a tier. Certainly at Garrett Wilson to Jaxoon Smith-Njigba and up is a tier, it feels like to me. So even when I say he's a sell because he's at his ceiling, I'm not so sure there's too many moves to make where you can get, down the list and feel comfortable with it without being like, I might have just sold. Like, I'll give you an example. And when I was trying to do this, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this on a team where I am acquiring future value. And so I took a JSN and I offered it for George Pickens and a 27 first. Which side do you prefer, JSN or Pickens and a 27 first?
Pickens and 27.
I think I'm going the first too.
It's close enough though, right?
Mhm.
Like it's an
really
interesting
close.
So it's a tier
I'm looking
down.
for so many Pickens trades right now. So you hit a vein there.
What you're saying
Right?
is like totally like the process too, right? Is that like there's not much room for him to continue to return on what his value is now, right?
On
Like
value.
he
On
was the wide
production,
receiver. He was the wide receiver 6 in 2024. I'm with you where I think that's probably ceiling for him.
Yeah.
I think he can continue to produce in and around that area, like 6 to 14 or something like that.
Yeah.
But he has to maintain that to stay at this value, and he probably doesn't necessarily go up very much. So your point
Right.
is there that this is probably a plateau, and you have to decide whether you want to have that production on your roster or try to get out of that plateau and maybe go a little further down than you might want to, depending on what that plus is, right? Like that plus can supplement that gap, right?
Maybe you could use them to go up too, because
Good
maybe
point,
this
yeah.
is a plateau where you're like, look, I can get Drake London. I just have to give JSN, a second, a third, and get like Drake London and Miles Sanders back or something like that, where it's like it feels a little weird, but you're like, I think I just made a great trade. I don't know. There's different moves that I guess I'm just thinking selling on JSN's value. I love JSN.
Totally.
You know this,
Yep.
and I sold him to you, Trav, in a weird way, but that was more for a quarterback in a weird league. But in this George Pickens for a first, it didn't get turned down. It got hesitated on, and then I added a second to it. I was like, well, here, if you're thinking about it, my price is going up. Immediately declined out of principle, which I love, of course.
Of course.
Right? Of course, that's like, but but I was hoping for the counter. Whatever. We're playing games. We're having fun. But I'm unsure of which side I like on that deal too. As the other manager was like, I'm not sure. I'm like, fuck, neither am I, bro. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not sure either. It's hard to sell on these elite wide receiver assets. You go to a guy like George Pickens and all of a sudden he gets 80 targets and he's just like he looks like
he's just a knucklehead.
Jalen Tolbert out there or worse, right? Exactly. So you never know, right? So, I mean, you're trying to gain production or maintain production while gaining value. That doesn't always work quite right. So anyway, that was the idea, was just trying to see different ways to use JSN's potentially peaked value.
And these are the ones for any dynasty managers listening here, which is probably most of our audience. So I probably didn't need to say that, but these are the
This
ones
is the underground, pal.
when it is like, when there's some heartstrings involved, right, guys? And when there's a guy that you really like and there's such a range of outcomes or so many questions around him, these are the ones where I'd probably come to the group chat and talk to you guys, because you guys can help me bring those heartstrings out of it and, have that level-headedness like we just did on this show, where I am super bullish, but I also see that value plateau, right? And so these are the ones where I might come and chat with some of my trusted friends to bounce a couple of things off here and there to pull that out of there. Joe, what was that little scowl about?
I wasn't a scowl. I was just thinking to myself, I was like, how do you get like can you get Emeka Egbuka and a first for JSN?
That one I like. That one
because like Emeka Egbuka and JSN literally played the same role in the same offense on the same team, or I should say same program, right? It's like Emeka Egbuka is like JSN 2.0, maybe better, maybe worse.
Jax,
I don't know.
You'll love to hear that. I might even take that. I might even take that, Jax.
I know. If you get a little something on top, I don't know. That's what I was thinking about. It's like, what do you trade down to with JSN? And like, I don't know. I kind of just talked myself into that. I don't know if anybody's going to do that because people are super excited about it.
Yeah, it's hard to trade for rookies.
It's like one's the unquestioned number one wide receiver on his team. The other one's the wide receiver 3 in a very crowded wide receiver room.
Look, if Godwin doesn't start the season on PUP, and Egbuka comes out and has 2-3 targets in the first 2 games or whatever, that's when you make that deal.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm throwing those.
By the way, that's a huge dynasty note, is buy the rookies after the first 2-3 weeks, unless you completely are unsure. But if you believe in a guy, like we did this with CeeDee Lamb, we did this with DK Metcalf, we did this with Jamar Chase. You could have done that with Odell Beckham Jr., which would have been the greatest one of all time. Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb. You can go up and down the list, and I'm missing all of them. I mean, there's so many that you could do it with that when you see the first couple games, you're like, is this guy even any good? And then,
Yep. And then also just tearing down, but getting players that are like the same profile, the same type of asset, who are ascending versus one that is plateaued, like we were just talking about. I mean, you're not going to find a more like for like profile from like JSN to Emeka Egbuka. That's like literally like the college recruited them to do the same thing. They occupy the same role.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. So guys, before we move on to other positions, I'm not going to let Trav skip over our boy.
Which one? There's 2.
I know there are 2.
I know.
When Cooper Kupp gets hurt, odds are we're going to be talking about Torrey Horton, who's probably going to lock down, I would say, the wide receiver 4 role after like Bobo on this team. But if Cooper goes down, there's a pretty good chance we're going to see El Tercero.
El Tercero.
I think I was just involved to El Tercero. If you want to know who that is, you just got to go back and listen to early episodes.
You do have to go back. This is not our problem. This is not our problem. By the way, real quickly,
for the real ones. This is the underground.
Of course, this is they know. But listen, JSN, Cooper Kupp, those are your 2 guys, and then I do think that Torrey Horton has a chance to beat out Marquez Valdez Scantling, ping pong paddle hand Scantling. Like literally, dude runs down the field with 2 ping pong paddles.
One time of that, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Because that was literally what he was. I mean, he would you remember all these throws that Mahomes would make to him wide open in the end zone, and he would just bat it into the stands. I mean, it was really bad. So I think, Torrey Horton was very precocious, in college. And had he stayed healthy, would have been likely a 3rd or 4th round pick. Instead, he goes in the 5th round. Look, I don't know if he's good or not, but I do know that he had a profile that made him look like he might be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I know. He might be good.
And so I do appreciate our new listeners, and so I am going to tell them that El Tercero is Ricky White III, who morphed into Ricardo Blanco El Tercero, and now is just El Tercero. And so
Don't say it like that. It's El Tercero.
sorry,
let
Ricardo
Joe
Blanco
do
El
it. Let Joe do it.
Tercero.
Yeah, let Joe do it. We don't want to mess it up.
I can do accents, Jax. What are you trying to say?
Do the Switzerland one. That's the best one.
Well, if I'm talking about Switzerland right now, we're talking about Mexico.
There it is. I think MVS, Torrey Horton, and Bobo are like this one player that like is going to play to sort of stretch the field, play outside, and just be a guy out there running around doing nothing. And if he's wide open, they'll chuck it to him. Other than that, certainly Darnold is not going to be checking all the way down to his fourth option deep. Don't see that happening too often. So
MVS, MVS is the field stretcher to let these guys work in the immediate and underneath. Yes. And we're probably going to talk about tight ends, and that's the same reason they drafted Elijah Arroyo, because he's like what I was talking about with Waller earlier for the Dolphins. This is a seam stretching, fast, athletic tight end who they can line up out wide. They did that in Miami. There was talk of this dude playing X wide receiver.
Yeah, I was going to say they're so delusional about this guy. They think he can play X.
Yeah, because they don't have an X. And so they're just desperately looking for one, which I think it's going to be Horton.
He can do it.
Yeah, he's fast and big and athletic. Let's just
they're going to put fucking MVS out there. It's going to be MVS.
Yeah, it's going to be MVS. It's going to be MVS to start, but like things can morph, things could change. We'll see what happens in training camp. But Arroyo is a very interesting prospect.
Yes,
super athletic. I mean, I just don't know how much room there's going to be between Cup and JSN and MVS. I mean, holy shit, that's a lot of 3-letter names on this team.
It's like a new version of the acronym boys back in the day when the Packers had ESB, Equanimous St. Brown, and MVS. I used to call them the acronym boys with a Z, of course. Album dropping 2026.
No, Fant's still there.
See, I think the tight ends are going to be kind of involved. I think the fact that Fant is there kind of muddies it up for Arroyo. Like, I think he, especially early in the season, is going to be the starting tight end. And if Clint Kubiak's offense supports production from a tight end, I think Fant is suited to potentially do that. And so he could stave off the rookie for longer than we want him to. But looking at Kubiak last year, in 2021 as the OC for Minnesota, he gave 87 targets to Tyler Conklin. And then if you look at last year with the Saints, he gave 110 split between Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau. That doesn't even incorporate Taysom Hill's targets or whatever he got as quote unquote a tight end. So I think actually the tight ends are going to be a big part of this offense. I don't see them doing a bunch of two tight end sets. Like, I don't think it's going to be a bunch of 2 tight end sets because both of these guys aren't blockers, right? Like, if one of these guys was like a do-it-all blocker, I think maybe we do see a lot of tight end sets with one of them in the slot and one of them in line. But I'm not sure. Like, what do you guys think about that? Do you think one of them can play a little bit more in line?
I know AJ Barner's bringing a lunch pail to the game.
Amen to that. A sturdy one at that.
Him and Eric Sauerbert are coming in there to do a job.
Wow. Wait. Isn't Sauerbert in the lunch pail?
Yeah. Sauerbert, you put that on your sandwich?
That's how of some kind.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's probably why they drafted a tight end in the second round, because they do prioritize a tight end in this offense, and I'm sure they hope it's Arroyo, but are probably planning on getting by with Fant in the meantime. Yep. I don't know who Sauerbert is, nor do I care.
Nor should you.
No, but I'm just saying, I agree. I think they have high hopes for Arroyo. Probably just don't materialize this year. You know, it's one of those things where Fant's the veteran. It's kind of like the Njoku situation with, what's his face and my boy, Fan in Cleveland. So,
we're going to see the flashes, though. They're going to flash.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Guys. He's going to make some big plays.
Arroyo is going to flash down the seam and get our dicks real hard. And then Fannin is going to muck dudes after the catch and just break a couple. And we're going to be pitch intense all the way in.
I'm ready for Fannin.
Me too. I'm ready for both of these guys. I like both of them. Like, I have them very close to the tier with Terrence Ferguson, but you guys know that I have him just a touch above those two guys. So
and you guys actually saw in a recent draft that I had, not even tight end premium, but sort of an interesting it's a 10-team league. I drafted all three of those guys, Ferguson, Arroyo, and Fannin, which to me was
one of them's going to hit.
So good.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
As a matter of fact, it was interesting. You guys saw that in that league, I traded the 110 and Jaden Reed for like a 4th round pick or whatever. Again, a 10-team league for a 4th round pick and veterans it's like an FFPC and a 4th round pick for Rashee Rice. So I traded Jaden Reed in the 110 for Rashee Rice, basically. Well, that was Tyler Warren and Jaden Reed for Rashee Rice. Well, I ended up getting Elijah Arroyo with that pick that I got on the backside. So it's really Arroyo and Rice for, Tyler Warren and Jaden Reed. Give me the Rice Arroyo side all day long.
8 days a week, baby. 8 days a week.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to move to Arizona and talk about the Kyler Murray-led Cardinals. Let's try and run through these guys a little faster, boys, to make sure we don't run too long on this bad boy. But I want to talk about Kyler and his recent rushing performance versus the way that it supplements him as a passer. Because I've talked about it already, boys, that I don't think he's a very adequate passer. And I think he kind of holds the team back a little bit from a passing perspective. And I think for himself as a fantasy performer, you want to see him supplement that with rushing. And I just don't think he does it to the level that the perception is. You know what I mean, Jax? We talked about this. He does perform. I think you mentioned he's performed as a quarterback 10 in points per game last year. You mentioned. I just think the bottom for him could so easily fall out because I don't think he is like a super voluminous rusher necessarily. He last year was 572 yards, which was great, but the previous couple of years before that weren't the best. He had that one season in his sophomore year with over 800 yards and 11 touchdowns, but since then it's been kind of downward motion until last year. And I'm kind of curious as to what you guys think about that from like a longer term perspective, because he's not going to be that 800-yard rusher like we kind of want him to be, or like sometimes the perception seems to be, I'm not saying your guys' perception, but I'm saying like the community perception still sees him as one of those elite rushing quarterbacks. And I don't think he is that. And so if he's not that, and he's not a very good passer, I'm kind of out on Kyler and I'm looking elsewhere if I'm trying to find a rushing quarterback. But what say you, Jax? Because you and I kind of, was it the show that it was just you and I that we were talking about that? And we were kind of going back and forth a little bit on the debate, and it was more from like the points per game perspective. But what's your take on kind of the long term?
How quickly you forget my awesome take that Kyler Murray is one of the best contending team buys right now. He's been not just the quarterback 10 in points per game, he's the quarterback 10 overall. And, he was in 2019-20, just starting from his rookie year, quarterback 6, quarterback 3, quarterback 10. He only played 11 games, was the quarterback 19, played in only 8 games in 2023. Throw that one out. And then was the quarterback 10 last year. He's a top 10 quarterback in fantasy. That's what he is. That's what he is. Now, granted, he did spike at the quarterback 3 with the 800 yards. I'm going to push back against your rushing situation. Yards per game, look, the raw numbers go down, but yards per game go like this year to year. 34, 51, the year that you're talking about. That was an outlier. 30, 38, 30, 34. It's basically 36, 35 yards per game over the last, 6 years, with one season with him going for 50, which probably was not a good idea. That's too much. So I think he's right where he ought to be. He's going to be about a 500-yard rusher. He's got 31 rushing touchdowns in those 6 seasons. That's pretty good. 6 per season. He did have 11 in that one season, so call it 4 or 5. So 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns per year with 500, rushing yards. He's a top 10 quarterback in terms of fantasy production, and I don't really like him as a real quarterback either. But I don't think that any of that matters. And actually, I think that even plays into your advantage in trying to acquire him, because nobody seems to like Kyler Murray, including myself. I had to talk myself into this take. I didn't even want this take. I don't even want this take right now. But when you look at it, you have to kind of embrace it to some degree. Yeah, he's not very good, as you say. Like, his quarterback rating has not been good. Like, he's not been great. I am not going to sit here and defend him, but it is what it is, man. He's going to like, when it comes down to it, he's not Anthony Richardson. He's not going to be ushered out of the league. He's going to be a starting quarterback for like, you think Indianapolis would take Kyler Murray right now?
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yeah, it
He's
just
like
feels
he's like the Trevor Lawrence of QB1s, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, nobody really wants him, but when you look at his numbers every time, it's like, I've got him on a lot of teams, and let me tell you, dude produces.
I don't
Yep.
want
You
him
don't
at
like
all.
it. You don't like it in real life, but he
No.
produces. Actually, we got to find a better analog, because Lawrence, I don't like in real life or in fantasy. With this,
I was going to say, Trevor Lawrence would be the quarterback 2 version of Kyler Murray or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
100%.
exactly. No, but I would echo all of Jackson's points. Right, he's a QB1, and we hate him.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fair, but it just feels grosser than that. Like, I don't even know if I would say that he's a QB1 despite that production. Like, I think in the wash, it's going to come out that he's going to stop producing at that level because he kind of sucks. Like, if like his floor games are way more frequent than his ceiling games. If we look at, like, he's been over 25 PPR points in 10 of the last 35 games he's played. That's the last 3 seasons. He's been under 20 points in 14 of those games. So way more of those than he is having under or over. And I don't know. I can't buy into him, like, thinking that he's going to give that.
He's come
And
out
I
of
think
2 of
that's
those
going to
games
fall
too.
out.
Well,
I mean,
there's a big drop with the rest of the league, though, right? He went from 24 and 22 points a game to 18 points a game, and that's exactly when the 2 high shell coverages emerged, and the big plays sort of went away. And, like, you know, his rushing yardage just stayed more or less the same. Actually, it was slightly up last year.
Yeah.
Outside of his sophomore campaign, you know, his touchdowns were up from his 22 and 23 seasons, but he got hurt in both of those. But, like, I don't know. I think he's just going to be a mid 20s to low 30s touchdown scorer, 400 to 600 yard rusher, and a 3,500 yard receiver with 20 passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's a QB1.
Yeah, that's fine. Maybe
Like what I hate about Kyler is that he made Marvin Harrison
that's
suck.
exactly what I was going to say. He's holding back Marvin Harrison.
That's why we like he's good against zone, and he's gonna find McBride on those zone plays repetitively. But, like, we need to see Marvin Harrison change his game in order to accommodate Kyler's weaknesses, which are, you know, I don't know exactly what they're based on. It probably has something to do with his height and his fidgetiness in the pocket. But, like, that's why Kyler was awesome until he made the best wide receiver prospect of all time, wide receiver 5 or whatever it was last year, wide receiver 43, something.
Yeah. He's always been a little bit erratic as a passer. Like, I think, like, even in some of those good years, I think DeAndre Hopkins maybe was helping him out a little bit, but he was fucking terrible for Marv last year, guys. Terrible for Marv. We look at, like, the catchable targets. Marv only had 71.9% catchable targets. That was 60th out of 66 receivers who saw 75 plus targets.
I mean, maybe he wasn't open.
Yeah, potentially. But I mean, if even with the type of receiver he is, even if he's not open, you put the ball on him, though, right? A non-catchable target.
I'm just saying, like,
you don't want a yard
Kyler
sale.
Murray last year had his lowest sack percentage in 4 years. He had his highest QBR of his career. He had his highest success rate of his career. You know, I don't know, man. What do you want him to do? Like, he was pretty good.
I want him to give Marvin Harrison 1,400 yards and 12 touchdowns. That's what
maybe Marvin Harrison is never going to do that.
So Marv, like, he was pretty damn good against man coverage last year, which is, like, a good sign for a rookie. He was very average against zone, which you kind of expect for an ex receiver who's a rookie, right? But, like, my big fear is that Kyler has turned Marv into Maserati sacrificial X receiver.
Yes.
Jax, you just mentioned all that increased efficiency for Kyler. That's not unrelated to Marvin Harrison Jr. being on the team, right? That
Bingo.
guy takes oxygen out of the room. He draws defensive attention, and that helps the rest of the offense function. But holy cow.
Mhm.
Like, what a weapon to be using as a decoy, right? Like
Right?
that's the sad part. That's the sad
Well,
part. So hopefully they figure out a way. Like, they just got to get more intermediate in breaking stuff. It's almost like Tedoroa McMillan would be a better fit for the Cardinals than Marvin Harrison is. You know?
Yeah, I think like some of it does go back to Drew Petzing as well. He is a not good offensive coordinator. It's not a
And
very
he's still
like
there.
creative scheme, and he's getting another shot for his third season. It's fucking awful, boys. Like, there's no reason for it. And I think like Jax, I get what you're saying. Like, maybe Marv is bad, but I don't think he's that bad. You know what I mean? Like, he could
No, I'm not
still
saying
not
Marv is
be like
bad.
not maybe not bad, but maybe he's not
No.
that like kind of receiver. Like, I think he is some of that receiver. I think there are parts of this offense that have held him back from being that.
I think, I heard a lot of he's AJ Green. This was the Marvin Harrison Jr. comps, and I was like, you sure he's AJ Green? Like, AJ Green was dope. I mean, he was just a gazelle out there. I mean, pretty close to Julio Jones. And
Level with
Marvin
Julio
Harrison Jr. is not one of those two guys, in my opinion. I think he's a Maserati X. I think that's a really cool way of saying it. And unfortunately, sometimes a Maserati X is a little bit more of a decoy than anything. He was, you talked about it. He was number 6 in the NFL in air yards, right? So he did have a lot of deep targets. He was, 13 and a half yards ADOT, right?
But none
Number
of them were
7.
catchable.
Sure, but deep targets are harder to connect on, right?
Yeah.
So obviously you're going to have more uncatchable deep targets. And you're right. Kyler is not exactly the best deep ball thrower, especially given his size. I agree with you there. I agree. They're not a good fit. It's not a good fit. That
them
part
back.
is
Get Dak in that. Give Marv
Joe
Dak
Flacco in there.
honestly, Joe Flacco would open up Marvin
Totally
more.
he would.
But I don't know that he would win more or whatever. He's certainly not going to outscore Kyler Murray in fantasy. Kyler Murray hurts Marvin Harrison. We agree there. We agree there.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about Trey McBride, because
that's fun.
It is fun, man. We were talking about Brock Bowers earlier and how I've seen some like people saying that they could take Trey McBride over Brock Bowers for the regression factor. I think the biggest glaring thing is Trey McBride's potential regression. He only had 2 touchdowns last season. Excuse me, fellas, on so much work. I took a look. I shout out to renewing your StatHead subscription, by the way, because StatHead is the best. 30 times has a tight end since 1992, had 90 plus receptions. Only Jason Witten in 2009 and Trey McBride had fewer than 3 touchdowns. Only 6 of those 30 touchdowns had fewer than 5 touchdowns. And on average, they were scoring 7 touchdowns. So this is terrible, terrible, terrible fantasy football math, boys. But you give Trey McBride 5 touchdowns last year. He scored as the wide receiver 11 already. He would score as the wide receiver 9. Give him 7 touchdowns last year. He would score as the wide receiver 6. Terrible,
is that
terrible.
In tight end premium or just regular
PPR? Just PPR. Yeah. So I think there's crazy upside because that target volume still looks like it's going to be there. They didn't bring any other big pass catching weapons in. There's nothing that indicates they're going to go more run heavy to me. And so I think he's still going to be such an involved part of this offense and pretty much a lock for more than 2 touchdowns. I think it's pretty similar to Bowers though. Like it's like, yeah, some of those touchdowns can come up and there's room for a little bit of a dip in volume because that volume was crazy. They're both still going to be crazy good options and maybe they just don't need to be overthought, right, gentlemen?
As good as McBride is, he's not been a touchdown scorer as of yet in his career. So there's a little bit of, wish casting to his progression or regression to the mean in touchdowns. Although I do agree with you, it should still go up. But I wouldn't put that number too high. He seems more like a Maserati Zach Ertz than, anything else.
That was kind of mean.
Yeah.
Kind of mean.
No, but
I'm going to push back on that one.
More of a between the 20s guy than a red zone.
Maybe,
weapon.
yeah.
He's a zone beater. He's in the Travis Kelce ilk. Don't.
I know. I'm just playing. I'm just having fun.
Yeah,
I love him.
That was
Look.
pretty
I've
fun.
got receipts on Trey McBride, so I don't need your. I can do this on my own. I just go pull up Twitter right now. I got it. After that first year, I was ready. Trey McBride. I've got the good Trey McBride receipts after his rookie year, as I do with George Kittle. Those guys were. Yeah. You could see him coming a little bit. These guys were.
The people don't need us to tell them that Trey McBride's good.
One sec. Trey McBride, third most end zone targets of all touchdown or of all tight ends last year.
Wow.
Yeah, 9. And that's end zone touchdowns, so targeted in the end zone.
End zone targets, right?
Yeah, there was like 4 of those. I remember because in fantasy championship week, they're trying to get him a touchdown because they didn't have one to that point. I remember they got like 4 to him. He finally caught one. And I was jumping for joy because I had him in a championship game. So I was like, oh, God bless you guys.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Joe. They were, look.
There was like 4 of them in that game.
That's a great point.
Yeah. And if we look at targets inside the 20, just to kind of polish that bad boy off, he had 20 of them, which was good for third in the league. So,
I mean, he should have the most targets in all the yardages because he was awesome.
Yeah, so I think those touchdowns are going to go up, baby.
They should put him at X.
Yeah. Oh, that was not nice either. So let's talk about this running back room, guys.
Let's just see what happens.
Yeah,
he's got those big arms now. Let's just see.
YOLO. Imagine the GM strategy is just YOLO. Or the head coach or whatever. So let's talk about
fired so fast.
Let's talk about the backfield, guys, because we got another team we got to get into here. So keeping these tight was
moving fast.
Yeah. It's hard to see James Conner ceding touches to Trey Benson this year, guys. As much as I want it to happen, despite injury, I don't see it because it looks like these guys want to use a fucking all the time bell cow. And James Conner looks like he is able to hold up to that role. I think you're still putting Trey Benson on your benches in Dynasty because that's what you do with these backup running backs. Yeah, Joe, you're making faces again. What?
Oh, I was just thinking about Maserati decoy.
Oh my God.
So now so James Conner is just that beat up old, really reliable Chevy pickup running back. It's just like we're just gonna keep giving it to this truck.
I don't know about reliable, but
he can haul a load.
You got to fix it up once in a while, but he ran great last year.
Did he ever?
Yeah.
Did he ever? That's kind of the take.
So,
and James, go ahead, Joe. Yeah, if you got more.
Well, I was gonna say, so listen. I want to believe in Benson. Right here on this program, I was crapping on Benson a few weeks ago because I was just like, maybe he's not who he thought he was if he couldn't beat out old James Conner. He couldn't even beat out Demercado and whoever the other cast of characters they have on the team. But I've had to talk myself back into Benson. I was just looking at his raw numbers, right? He still has 4.39 speed. He still has a 116 speed score for a guy who's 216 pounds. That's still the thing that we target. So if the game slows down for him at all, if he figures it out at all, this is about Trey Benson. This is not about James Conner being this immovable force. This is about Trey Benson figuring it out and taking the job because he's got all the tools necessary to do it. It's just, does he have the mental makeup to go do it?
Bingo.
That's my take. I don't know what to do. I'm not buying.
Yeah.
I'm not selling.
Yeah.
I'm with you. He was as successful, so to speak, as James Conner was on a per touch basis last year. That doesn't necessarily, it's a small sample size. So, I don't think it says too much, but, it says enough. He wasn't bad last year. I mean, he was 10 yards a catch and, 4.5 yards a rush. That's good.
On the 2 weeks where he got 9 and 12 touches, which were his 2 highest touch totals of the season, not a huge number, right?
Right.
he finished as the RB24 and the RB22 in those weeks, respectively. Right. So it's like, give him the carries or the receptions, and he's gonna produce just fine. So it's like, if Connor goes down, I think Benson is reliable, but it just begs the question, like, why didn't he play more if he was that efficient? There's got to be something else going on, and that always gives me pause.
It's because James Conner is #good.
Yeah,
I mean,
Benson's probably a buy. He's probably a buy.
If you look at it, he actually outcarried Michael Carter and Amari DiMercado combined. So last year I think they did, prefer Benson to those guys. I mean, you said he couldn't beat them out. He technically did and didn't.
I feel like down the stretch, check me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like down the stretch he was ceding carries, secondary, backup duties to those guys. I feel like he peaked around week 9 and 10, and then they stopped trusting him for some reason. He started losing carries to DiMercado. Maybe his injury, maybe it's just something we don't know about, but it just seemed like he lost the team.
They didn't trust him in the pass game. DiMercado and Carter both out targeted him by quite a bit, as he only got a few targets on the season. But
all right, boys. So I think I'm going to make the executive decision coming off the Arizona Cardinals that we are going to save the Jacksonville Jaguars. We do owe the listeners a bonus episode, as on a previous episode, we did have to cut off San Francisco and Houston. So next week, we are going to roll with our regularly scheduled programming of the next group of teams, and there will be a bonus episode of these straggler teams coming your way at some point. And so keep an eye on the socials for that. We will do that as a bonus episode on top of our regular episodes, just for the people. Hadn't talked to the boys about that, but just made the call on that one there. Hope that's cool, fellas. And with that, I think we had another good episode, boys. It was
I'm getting time and a half on that episode. That's all I know.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. We're gonna have to talk to the Undroppables overlords to make sure Jax gets a little bump in pay for those ones.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, this was a fun one, boys. Of course, bit of a marathon episode as we will, but we covered these teams from top to bottom. And I think in the spirit of thorough analysis, you kind of have to do that sometimes. And I think our conversation that flows through it is pretty nice as well, boys. So I appreciate hanging out with you guys on a Monday night every single week. Appreciate the listeners tuning in. For one Jax Falcone, for Joe Quavius Kubatakis, I am Travis Seal, and we will see you next week. Peace.